Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining the October session of the Strategy Implementation Institute. It's great to see many of you just coming to these meetings regularly. I know that the meeting, which is hosted by Robin, it's in difficult hours for many of us. But I think it's part of the deal of trying to be a global organization. Sometimes we need to adjust, so at least you can make to this one. So what I wanted to cover today, I think the format is going to be very similar, a brief update, but I think what's most interesting about this session is discussion, brainstorming, sharing of best practice ideas. So I put together a couple of slides just to give an update to everyone where we stand, how things are progressing, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion on a topic. We keep increasing the number of SAP strategy implementation professionals. The network last month was quite good. We had one new joiner every day, so that's good. We're starting to be recognized. I think the challenge is always to get into the learning and development of big organizations where they would recommend a strategy implementation as a career path or development path for their community. So we're getting there, but also we don't want to explode this so that we don't know each other anymore. The strategy implementation playbook, you should have received the electronic version. There is the option of buying the paperback. I think we need to check with Robin, but there was a discount for the paperback. So, but nice. I think the feedback has been really positive. It's one of the first time I see a playbook or a roadmap or a guide for that strategy implementation. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and support. But I think it's a step in the profession. We discussed the fellowship already in the past, so this is something that anybody interested is welcome to join. What else? Yeah, so I think we will start straight away with the discussion, because usually I feel like we cut it short and we don't have enough time to go a bit deeper. So what I wanted to get your thinking, and I was a bit surprised with the results of this poll that we put in LinkedIn. It's about the transformation office. So basically, as you can see there, the idea is to check what people think about the transformation office and whether this should be something that becomes temporary, or transformation offices should be always temporary. As you can see, many organizations still don't have transformation office, which was a bit of a surprise to me. So I thought could be, as it very much relates to strategy implementation. I wanted to have the discussion today on this topic. Does your organization or the ones that you consult, do they have a transformation officer or chief transformation officer? And is it temporary or permanent? And then your views, is this something that we believe that it should be mandatory, or it's a good thing to have nowadays? I think there's quite some room for improvement. What should be the role of these transformation officers? So what I propose is, so that we have much more interaction, is I put you in breakout rooms. I will join as well, and then we have enough time to discuss also in plenary. So take a bit of time if you see people in the breakout that you don't know, to introduce a bit what you're doing and what you're interested on. Maybe there's some connections there that can be made. And then think about this topic: are transformation offices temporary, or are there to stay, or yeah, how do we see them evolving? I have my views, I'll share them afterwards. So if that's okay with you, let me just put up here some random breakout rooms, and then we'll get together in 20 minutes. 1 second, breakout rooms, where are they? Here. So take your time to introduce yourself. I would put 4 breakout rooms so that you all have 6, and I'll join you as well.
Antonio,
So,
sorry, very quickly, sorry.
Jonah, yes.
Who was the audience for this survey? Was it the membership or was it wider than that?
No, it's wider. LinkedIn is wider, so it's you
LinkedIn, okay.
cannot track them. Yeah.
Okay.
Good question, Shona. But I know you're in that space. I'm curious to hear your views. Okay, open rooms, get to know a bit introductions, and then about 20 minutes, I'll stop by and I'll join to see how things are moving. So 20 minutes, open rooms, here we go. Welcome back, and amazing discussions. I think you just spent about 15 minutes, but when I joined, I think I could not find more kind of bright mind thinking about this type of topics. I think we have here so much power, experience, and vision. So I'm looking forward for having a bit more time discussing in the plenary. So let me just go group by group, and if you can all share the main areas that you cover. Let's start. I'll start backwards. Let's start with the group with David, Dimitro, Gerald, Wayne, Jay. Yeah, group 4. Who wants to just share? Are these transformation office temporary, or should they be permanent, or how do we see this space? No volunteers? Gerald, you want to go? Wayne?
I was going to say if Wayne could go, because he had a lot of good insights on this topic. You know, my take on it was that transformation, it seems to be somewhat of a temporary situation, and the reason I bring that up or shared that was that, and I can see it on 2 folds. One is you have massive transformations like what Steve Jobs did with Apple, or what the auto industry is going through right now. But then you also have some level of transformation where technology and things are changing so fast or so much that industries have to kind of remain relevant or keep their ears to the ground as far as restructuring their operations. One of my concerns, though, is, and as we were talking, and I was letting other people talk, I looked in LinkedIn just at the title of transformation officer, and it seemed to be combined with CIO, with people officer, with operations officer. So it was a mix. It wasn't consistent. The other thing is, when I think about constant transformation, is that, and Tony, you know, for me, from my books, culture becomes a big topic for me. Is how do you manage and how do you develop a really solid base culture with that purpose that we were talking about earlier? Wayne mentioned BMW and the ultimate driving machine, and that consistent theme where they're able to use that theme across multiple, you know, irregardless of what technology is being used, what fuel is being used, and so on. They keep that purpose, but does that single purpose also anchor the culture of the organization? And maybe that's the answer: is that theme maps the culture, and irregardless of the transformation of technologies and so on, do they all come together? So I think it's an interesting topic from the standpoint of, and I can't say one way or the other, because I think it depends on the organization, right? And the industry, as far as is there, and at what level does transformation have to happen? Wayne, what are your thoughts?
Well,
I think you said it very, very eloquently, so that's great. So thank you. I would say, however, in our study and in our work that I've been in the transformation world for 50 years, starting my career with Xerox, and my last career was with Oracle Corporation. So I've been involved in the technology space, but in all different dimensions. And I think the greatest observation, coming back to this notion around this unifying philosophy, you can ask, do a blind test with your executive. Ask each one of them individually, what do we do? What do we stand for? What is our value proposition? What does our future state look like? What do you think the outcome we're going to realize? And you ask them those 5 questions. individually, they're all going to give you a different answer. And if you don't have the unification of the enterprise level C-suite unified, everything else falls apart after that, because everybody is trying to manage up as to what they think everything should be. So this common thread comes back to Steve Jobs converting Apple from a box company to a platform. What's happened with Amazon, where they are a platform as a service and they spin out continual growth relevant to adding on and on, but they have a unifying force of what they are. And I think transformation is a continuum. There's parts of the business that have to continually transform because it's the maturity of that organization. And then there's parts of the business that have to move from transformation to innovation.
Great. Wow, it's so much food for thought. And yeah, so there's different type of transformation, and what's the impact on culture if you're constantly transforming. So I think these are very powerful thoughts that I don't have an answer, obviously, but I think this is just very much food for thought. Thank you. Let me go to the second group, and then we can have a bit of Q&A and sharing. Group number 3, Alan, Andrew, Chris, Randall, Ricardo, Sola. Who wants to just share? Who wants to go? Chris? Randall?
Well, I'll start. Most of the conversation centered around Chris's experience. My own experience has been that regardless of the organization, regardless of the culture, there's that role of coordination. Somebody needs to make sure all the trains are moving forward, not a decision-making role. So just understanding the human condition. I guess I come down, Antonio, on the side of it's permanent. Regardless of what you call that office, there is a role and a responsibility for a small group of individuals to play that role. And then Chris went into his own experience. So I'll hand it over to him.
Okay. Well, I think it was, just from my point of view, I think that for me, transformation means strategy. I don't really, I know lots of people try and make a difference, I think more for marketing reasons than the other reason. But that's what transformation about. It's about realizing some strategy. And that's a permanent thing. You don't stop having strategy and you don't stop needing to change, especially in these days. So if you have a need for a transformation office, I can't see that it's not permanent.
Yeah.
And I think just what I was talking about and answering others was just that we've seen the real value of having such a capability. It does bring real value to organizations in terms of achieving those strategic transformations.
Yeah, it's another great point. So it's permanent, but I just raised questions. I don't have answers, but two questions. First, I think for a transformation to deliver the benefits, it needs to settle down, right? There needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4 years that it's settled down and people embrace the new culture, the new platform, whatever. So I don't know. I'm just second question that I was thinking is for the last century operations was the main driver. Is transformation the core of the businesses in the now and the next century? So just putting my thoughts there. I'll leave everyone to share afterwards. I want to go through each of the groups and then just raise your hand and we can comment further. Room number 2, Claudette, Danielle, Julie, Larry, Shona, Joram, who I think, Shona, you were a bit holding the pen, but anyone in the group can talk.
Well, is Shanna talking?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think we were really looking at Shona's example of her organization, and in her mind, our transformation group is temporary. And there's an exit plan, and there is a strategy to succession plan into specific roles. And I think as I was listening to that, I was thinking of succession planning and management's responsibility to be strategic. And I don't know how other people, what their experiences are, but it's difficult to get managers to think strategically. And I get concerned, even though I myself am moving into a project and support transformational role, having retired recently as an executive director and moving into this role in the same company, I worry that the younger managers don't have the ability, or not thinking as strategically as I'd like to see. And if you kind of absorb them from that responsibility, where does that leave the organization? But the point was also made that when people are doing the day-to-day, there has to be time that's set aside for this work to occur, this transformation, that doesn't get bogged down by the day-to-day. And we owe it to our managers to give them the space to do their jobs while someone else is working on the strategy with people. I think the bottom line we came out of it is this is a people exercise more than it is an outcome exercise. And it's really about the best way to bring people along.
Thank you, Claudette. Very interesting. Shona, anything to add there?
No, I said ours was temporary because my department is temporary in terms of the core, because I work for HS2, which is a project. The core work in our project probably has 9 years, and I make it very clear that I think our transformation portfolio to deliver our last strategy has 18 months to 2 years to complete. We have to be ready by a certain date, otherwise we're causing a bit of chaos. But we hand over as we develop our systems. We manage them in the business as usual space as a product, which maybe, I don't know if that's too IT technical, but what that means is that you take that aside, you have a different governance, you can change. I always say, do you want to change the screen from blue to green or whatever it is? You can have all those change requests and so on managed through that stream. And we're just about to put 2 more systems into that process. So the projects can focus on transformation and on people. And it was just, Claudette, they were saying about people, that's very important to us. We do have an investment committee that looks at prioritization and business cases and all that stuff. But we also have the next level down of operational managers in an impact group. And we have a spreadsheet, always a spreadsheet, that maps all the initiatives and the functions against the teams. And every month, the project managers and the business change managers and the operational leaders meet to map the intensity of effort across the teams. And if it's too much, they shout. And this month, for the first time, they have done that. And they have asked the transformation board to delay something or pause something. And we're now doing an options evaluation against the benefits and the impacts to see which one we should slow down that reduces the negative impact of not achieving the benefits the least. You see what I mean? So that we're taking the impact on our team very, very seriously. It's not just all driving for the financial benefits and the cost savings. If the teams can't manage it in terms of user testing or whatever, then it's too much, and we take that very seriously.
Thank you, Shona. The thought that came to mind when you were both talking is also, do companies with a permanent transformation office perform better their transformations than the temporary, or vice versa? I don't know. That's another field for research.
I think the risk is less because they get turgid and slow down. I think with a short one, you keep that momentum going. And you
have that push. When you are temporary, maybe you do perform better. So I don't know how any statistics, but I think that's another point for research. And I think this recording is going to be very useful if we want to do a bit more research, any of you. But thank you, Shona, for sharing that from the field and running.
Sorry, we also have a very clear vision with 3 objectives, and all our senior managers know it, and they would all say the same 3 objectives. I think that's very important.
That's super important. That's very unusual. Thank you, Shauna. Well done there. That's probably thanks to you. Group number one, Anthony, Gary, Joe, Rames, Roy, Winnie. I also joined the call there and it was super interesting. Joe, I think you were facilitating, but anybody can cover. I don't know if Joe is still there. Yeah, Joe, you're there.
So you're on mute.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Antonio. We had, done a very brief round of introductions and how each of us have bumped up against transformations in our careers and our current positions. And it was very clear that when we went through that definitions, I wanted to get, this is my ulterior motive, was to get it down to answer three questions in three buckets. Do you think this transformation efforts and positions should be permanent, not permanent, or something temporary or in the middle? And I would say that thanks to Roy, who grounded us with some good transformation definitions, and Roy, I'll ask you to jump in here. We came up with our team of 6. It was 5 temporary, 1 permanent. And
temporary, okay.
Yeah. Roy, want to jump in, or and Winnie, you were the Lone Ranger that said it should be permanent. So maybe after Roy talks, you can jump in about your reasons for that.
Okay, tell us, Roy.
He's muted. Yeah.
Let's see, we see him.
Sorry. Here I am.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties. You're leading transformation, but can't find the button. So I think the way that I view transformations, but it's not it wasn't a view that was necessarily shared by everybody, was large change, almost any kind of change. And I think one of the things that Gary added, and I think it's very true, is that it has to do recently. It's more so in terms of digital and agile, and that the rate of change is increasing. And so really has to do with size and impact on an organization or within an organization. And I guess I'm just, there were some examples that were given in this conversation now in the plenary about, Apple that has transformed here, and we can point to specific things. And I haven't worked for Apple, or I haven't worked for Amazon, but I'm wondering if we were one of that companies, like one of these companies, from the inside, would they see themselves as, yeah, we did this transformation 20 years ago, and since then we're not transforming anymore. I can tell you that at EY, the feeling is that no matter what, we're transforming today, we'll be transforming tomorrow, in 5 years, in 10 years. It's just kind of built in. Whether we have an office that's called transformation or not, almost becomes definitional. There'll be something that leads it. Sorry, I probably confused more than clarified.
Yeah, that's good, Roy. So Winnie, what were your views on a permanent transformation office?
Hello, thank you. Well, my view was, to some extent, an organization is always going to be transforming. So we need, if we're going to have a transformation office, then we should make it permanent so that we have that single unit that brings all of these things that we are working on together. So I felt like if it's temporary, so if we are on a digital transformation drive, maybe we are doing it for 2 years, and then at the end of it, something else comes up. What do we do? Do we set up something else to then carry that through, or what? So that was my position, and also my need for clarity, so to say.
Very good.
Very nice.
Shona, you had a question.
Well, it was really sort of thinking of a point that I think continuous improvement, like automation initiatives and digital things, and as I say, improvements to existing systems and so on, is permanent, and that's what we have. But I do agree with an earlier speaker who said transformation is linked to a strategy and it finishes, and to keep it focused to deliver that strategy so that the success is measured. I think it's temporary, and I put quotes around that because, you know, they may be permanent staff, but the transformation office is established to deliver that strategy. That's right.
Yeah, Sean, in my experience, and because as you know, it's our main product is the balanced scorecard, and the outcome is a strategy map populated with a series of strategic objectives. And just by the basic fundamental ones that show up on client after client after client, each of those objectives in themselves will probably drive some kind of transformation throughout the organization. Is it improved culture? Is it improved engagement? Is it improved technology utilization? Is it improved processes? All those things get almost set up to have some kind of a defined initiative and process behind them to recognize the success of it. So I agree totally with what you just said.
Great. I just wonder if we're using the word transformation broadly, and maybe there's different changes. Maybe the core is this disruption, or I don't know, or and then you have incremental transformation. I don't know. Christensen Clayton, he was having 3 different type of innovation. Maybe we have 3 different type. I call 3 different type of projects: efficiency, sustaining, and transformation. So I don't know, just thinking aloud.
Yeah, Antonio, this is Gerald.
Gerald,
I was thinking as we were listening to everyone that it really is it's a mix, right? Where you have, let's say, you know, Joe, you talk about the balanced scorecard. You combine that with, again, I kind of refer back to the Gardner framework and your percentages of transformation, run the business and grow the business types of projects. It depends on where you are in your organization. You know, maybe that you're going to a point where transformational projects are more dominant because of just the nature of the issues that you're facing, but you still have to have in your portfolio an area where you're trying to figure out, how do I grow revenue or decrease my costs? And then how do I keep and maintain what I already have, which is running the business? And maybe then as you've made these massive transformations that you're constantly transforming, but that percentage of the business that's transforming is much smaller. So I think it can be a sliding scale, if you will, around the Gardner process in combination with the balanced scorecard of looking at those 4 areas of financing, people, processes, and internal organizational capability. So I think it can be, you know, temporary to a point, but also at the same point, I understand the gentleman Roy had said it can be permanent. So I think it can be both and.
Yeah.
I just think it's our job as systems implementation professionals to make the roles and responsibilities very clear for people. What are we doing? What are we doing? That business as usual. I mean, maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe the youth don't. You know, they do blur the edges between business as usual and operations and transformation. But I find my biggest challenge is working with people completely stressed because they have different expectations of what somebody was doing, not doing, and so on, and you know, trying to clarify the roles and the direction we're heading in. And so whatever we call it, whatever it is, it's about making the governance and the roles clear, I think. Not and being creative within those, but just making people clear about what they are, because they can get very stressed when they're busy.
Thank you, Shona. Ramesh, I see you raised your question.
Sure. I think the word transformation means something different depending on the type of organization and business that you're in. If you're in the government, transformation means something, and if you're in business, it means something different. Transformation. So what's the line between transformation and a typical R&D, for example? You're always going to find ways to improve and to do better, to improve your operations. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's about the value that this transformation brings to the organization. So, so the length and the depth of the transformation really depends on that. I will quote your sentence about, you know, the benefits. I think after each transformation, you know, program or effort that you go through, you need to find the way to reap the benefits of all of the efforts that you have implemented throughout the transformation period, because it's normally, you know, stressful. You know, you have tight deadlines and so on and so forth. So you need time to absorb all the changes, to reap all the benefits that came out of that transformation effort, regardless of how you call it, and then find other, you know, venues of improvement. You can, as one of the gentlemen said in my group, I think, you know, transformation is a buzzword now. So maybe in the near future, we're going to find a new buzzword for that serves the exact same purpose.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Ramesh. We're coming to an end. I just found it super interesting. I'm maybe a bit selfish because this is a topic that interests me. And so I take advantage of all these brains. I hope you enjoy it too, but if there's any topic you want us, Robin and I, to address, I'm advising one super large French luxury company. And what happened is they started with one transformation office, and I think they have about 15 transformation offices now through the business. Some of them go faster, some other less, but the challenge that this brings, which makes sense based on what we've talked, but then what the chief transformation officer was telling me, we have 1,000 to 200 strategic initiatives, just the strategic ones. So that's another mess or challenge. So we should be talking next time, but I leave you with that. There's just 2 more slides I wanted to cover. Is more for information. I posted in the chat, so if you can go to the chat there. I think yesterday one article I published on sustainability, and you know, my topic is more project leaders, but I think strategy implementation is pretty much. And I share a different way to look at transformation, or I think these people can drive much more change than what we actually do today. So like if you have a bit of time, curious to hear your views, that I think the link is in the chat. And then a bit to the topic on, you're all invited. So also in the chat, there's a link to this webinar with HBR on. I just made up a new title there, the Chief Project Officer. So you can click there and you can join, you can share, it's free. And we'll have kind of more discussion on this very, very interesting topic. So just to kind of references, the next meeting, I'm not sure about the date. So usually it's the 1st of November, but that's, it's holiday in some countries, so maybe Robin chooses for the 8th, but you know, we meet usually at around the beginning or on a Tuesday. And I just want to thank you. I truly enjoyed this call and the sharing, and feel free to just send comments or topics that you want us to address, and keep in touch. Take care.
Very good,
Thank you.
Antonio.
Thanks, Antonio.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Take it
everyone.
easy. Yep.
Antonio.
Bye.
Bye, Wayne.
Thank you.